Hello and welcome to another episode of Finding Mr. Right, the podcast. I'm your host, Ali Jackson, and I am bringing my positive and practical approach to dating, relationships, and a whole lot else about life, brought to you by my lived experience. Thank you for being here. I am truly so excited about this week's guest. You've heard about her before because I mentioned her in a media mention a few weeks ago when I had Essen Penarley on the pod talking about people pleasing and all of that. I had a media mention about Sam Showalter, who has talked about how she is on a mission to decenter her husband. This was like her 2026 New Year's resolution, essentially. And I loved her content. I talked about it on that episode. I mentioned that I would love to have her on the pod, reached out, and here we are. We had such an incredible conversation. I think I loved it for a few different reasons. I mean, firstly, Sam is just awesome and she's super easy to talk to. I could have chatted with her for hours. Would love to have her back. Secondly, I think a lot of the conversation about decentering men comes when we are single, comes when we are dating. And I love that. I've talked about it a lot, right? About having your own life, living like a full independent life as a single person that doesn't revolve around the people that you're dating or the relationship that you're seeking. But we don't see as much of that content from within a relationship. And I think there is this internalized shame that I get into with Sam about feeling so happy that you're in this relationship, loving your partner, like having, a relationship that you love, but feeling this internalized shame that you are finding yourself centering them in your relationship. And I think it's especially interesting when the external parts of your life don't necessarily reflect that. So like, as I think about the way that my life is panning out currently, I am super involved in my hobbies still, my individual hobbies that Skyline's not involved in. I'm super involved in my friendships. I see my friends all the time with and without him. I don't feel like my whole world is centered around him in terms of or my relationship rather, like my whole existence. And I do still struggle with, I would call it people-pleasing tendencies within a relationship that dates back to most of the relationships that I've been in. And I was actually reflecting on this with him after having this conversation with Sam about how this is the first relationship that I've been in where I have felt safe to decenter him more in the context of our relationship. And that is owed to both him as a partner and also me and my self-growth and self-reflection over the last 6 years since the last time I was in like a serious relationship. Because I think the people that I dated before obviously were not right for me. And I was definitely trying to be chosen rather than be the chooser, which isn't something that we get into today, but like something that I've talked about before. But they were also people who were allowing me to and wanting me to center them and who would be either on the surface or subconsciously upset if I wasn't. Those were the types of relationships that I was in prior to this one. And that's of my own doing, right? Like I had full hand in being in those types of relationships, and that isn't what I wanted anymore. And yet still, though I have worked on so much of it, and there are things that I used to struggle with in those relationships that I no longer do. I'll give you an example actually of something that happened this past week. As I was talking to Skyline about the conversation I had with Sam and how amazing it was, and we were kind of talking about my journey with this. Literally in that moment, I realized there's something that happened tonight that I would have previously centered you in that it didn't even occur to me to now. So we were going on a walk. We were walking to go get dinner. And we decided to walk to a totally different neighborhood. It was a 30-minute walk to get there. And he was wearing a pair of shoes that he doesn't wear that often. And as we were getting ready to go, he was like, I might be wearing the wrong socks for these shoes. And so we were literally walking out the door, but I was like, oh, do you want to change your socks? Do you want to, we can wait. I don't mind. And he was like, no, it's fine. They might slip down, but it's cool. So we left. That was the last I thought about it until we had this conversation, which was on our walk home. And I realized that was a really good example of a way in which I probably would have centered him in my evening in prior relationships. I would have been worried that his socks were slipping down and that he was uncomfortable on this walk. And frankly, prior partners of mine would have made it my problem, would have been complaining about it, despite the fact that like they decided as an adult not to change their socks. And it's, again, we get into this with Sam, but it's a small example, but it's like the incrementality of every small example like that adds up to a situation where you are fully centering somebody else in your own life. And I've come a long way on it. Like I said, that didn't occur to me, that like I didn't even like, wasn't a blip on my radar for the rest of the evening. But when we were talking about it, I realized that is something that I would have made part of my evening in prior relationships and like in my former life, if you will. So Sam talks about this on TikTok. She's gone viral for it. And the feedback, there's been so much supportive feedback, including my own, that I've seen of people who are relating to it and so glad she's talking about it and perhaps recognizing things from themselves or their own relationships in it and kind of like seeing those things in a new view. Also, though, as with anything that goes viral on TikTok or social media in general, she's gotten some awful responses, like from men who are seeing it as cold and uncaring, and her saying like, I'm not going to care about my husband anymore, which is so far from the truth. And we get into that. But also from women who either don't understand what she's talking about, and like, more power to you. If you don't relate to that, great, I envy you. But also probably some women who maybe do relate to it, but are like fighting that within themselves. Like I've done that myself in the past with things, right? So that is what we were talking about this week with Sam. It is an amazing conversation. I really loved it so much. And the media mention, in addition to Sam's TikTok, which is incredible and tagged in the show notes, I also found a Psychology Today article by Dr. Michelle Lino. It's called How to Decenter Men and Still Date. And so obviously this is about more of like the single phase, the dating phase. I wanted to bring it in here though, because I know that a lot of people listening right now are single and dating. And I think it answers the exact fear that people have with this idea that decentering men means going cold or giving up on love. And her whole point is that you can still date and enjoy intimacy and build something real without organizing your life around this other person, this person's approval, etc., or like losing yourself to keep a relationship. The line that stuck with me is dating from clarity instead of fear, and asking whether a relationship reflects who I am or who I think I need to be, which I know we've talked a lot about. So the link to that article is in the show notes. This week, a couple of updates. This week has been extremely stressful. Firstly, it was the anniversary of my dad's death in the past week, which I got into a lot more on the Patreon and with my therapist this week. And that's always a whole thing for me. And it makes any week harder, right? When like a grief bomb day, if you will, drops in the middle of the week. But the thing that was kind of like layered on top of this is we have been struggling with Logan peeing outside of the litter box, specifically mostly on our bed. Logan is one of our cats, for those of you who don't know. He is 10 years old. I've had him since he was a kitten. He has never really had this type of problem before. He's had a UTI once when he was much younger, but that didn't even that did not prompt him to pee outside the litter box. Rory has had that issue in the past, but not Logan. And so that happening is incredibly frustrating and difficult to deal with, and having to like figure out ways to keep him out of the bedroom, but like we can't do that at night because he will just howl if he's not allowed in the bedroom because we sleep with our cats. But two, like come up with things that like protect the bed in even more ways than we already had. So like that is annoying and frustrating and like time consuming. And then of course the layer on that we are so worried about him. If you don't know cats, like peeing outside the litter box is a like red alarm, something is wrong. Could be behavioral, could be medical, like you don't necessarily know. But talked to my vet about it. Just so happened that we had all of the annuals for the cat scheduled this week. We always do them in July, right at the end of their insurance year, so that we've like used up most of our deductible. So my vet was like, okay, just we'll test him for stuff at his annual. It's only in a few days. Like we don't have that much availability before then anyway. So we'll see then. So I was like, okay. So we were kind of dealing with it for a couple of days. And it's just so worrisome. Like he's obviously not comfortable. I will say though that like sometimes when there are urinary things going on with cats that they are like clearly having a hard time going to the bathroom, they're going in and out of the litter box, they're like in pain. None of that was happening. Like my vet was confident based on all the stuff I was telling her that it wasn't an emergency situation, but of course something we want to get figured out. Clearly something is wrong, whether it's mental health, behavioral, or physical. So it was just a really stressful week for that reason, like never knowing if you're going to come into the bedroom and he's going to have snuck in there somehow and there's pee on the bed. Like, we have a waterproof mattress cover. We put waterproof blankets over the top. He burrowed his way under one and peed under it because of course he did. So just stressful. And it just added a layer to the week. And on the Patreon, I've been talking about my new therapy journey where I'm working with a therapist who specializes in women's hormones and late ADHD diagnoses in an effort to kind of perhaps figure out what's going on with me. And I talked to her a lot about it. I was talking to her about past relationships and how my cats factored into past relationships. It just so happens that almost all of my past, like serious actual relationships were allergic to cats. And especially the ones since I even had the cats. Like the coach was not, but I didn't have them yet. The resident was not, but I didn't have them yet. The dentist, ASV, the oyster, all allergic to cats, varying degrees. But there was a persistent theme within those relationships where I was extremely anxious about how my cats were impacting my boyfriend and the relationship and how it might impact the future. Like I had a lot of anxiety that I didn't really confront at the time, to be honest, about how they might be perceiving me and our future because of my cats, just by the fact that they existed, let alone if they were doing anything wrong. Like I was anxious about it, even if they were doing nothing wrong, just because they were causing allergies, let alone if they were doing something wrong. And I can remember some very specific incidents, specifically with the oyster, where something did happen with one of my cats. Like Rory went through a peeing on the couch phase that we had to figure out, for example, and how he was extremely frustrated to a degree where his frustration extended beyond the cat and the situation more so and reflected onto me. And I began to internalize that as Rory did something wrong, therefore I did something wrong. I raised him wrong. Like I remember this one particular conversation that I had with the oyster. Reflecting back on this relationship, obviously, I realize it was horrible, but I remember one particular conversation with the oyster where that had happened. And he said something to me along the lines of like, how could this happen with your cat? Like what, I forget the exact words he used, but it was basically like, what did you do to make him like this? I think it was this. I think it was, why haven't you trained him not to pee on the couch? I was like, buddy, obviously I have. Like do you think I just like have a cat who like for the last, how old was he at the time? 5? 4? Do you think I just have a cat who like for the last 4 years has just peed on the couch every day? And I'm like, oh, that's totally fine. Totally fine. Obviously not. Like something's wrong. But rather than, based on where I was mental health wise at the time, rather than take that and say, oh, this person is not a caring person. This person is probably not my person. Like they are not even worried about the health of my cat. They are instead blaming me for this behavioral issue. I instead internalized it as to like, I have done something wrong. I didn't train my cat properly. And now this person I think that I think I love and want to spend the rest of my life with is not going to want to be with me because of this problem. So I worked through a lot of that after that relationship in therapy, but until now had not been in another relationship where somebody's like over all the time and now of course lives here to put it into practice. So that was coming up a lot for me during this situation, and literally just within me, like Skyline at no point made me feel anywhere close to any of that. Like we were very much in it together, frustrated together, and having like little, tense moments individually of like, this sucks. But like, I never once felt like he was blaming even Logan, let alone me. So that was, it just was a night and day situation, but it did bring this stuff up for me that I, talked through with my therapist. And I just, it was just a hard week. However, we took him to the vet this week and he had his annual. All the cats passed their annuals with flying colors. And then they did a bunch of extra blood work for Logan, took a urine analysis, like a urine sample. And good news, nothing is wrong, but like that medically, but like that also means that there's not a very clear treatment. So what they ended up doing, I guess there's this situation with cats where sometimes their bladder becomes inflamed, but they don't have a UTI. Like there's nothing medically wrong with them. It could be stress induced. But nothing's changed really in the house, except for the fact that Emmy has a different personality than she did when she was a kitten. She is still super, super sweet, lovely, cuddly angel baby, but she is coming into her own as like an adult cat and like establishing herself a little bit more, and the dynamics are changing. So it could be stress regarding that. Who's to say? But it's this like apparently very common situation where a cat's bladder becomes inflamed and there's like no like diagnosable reason. It's like a diagnosis of exclusion is what she said. So they ran all the blood tests. His kidneys look great. His liver looks great. His blood looks great. Red blood cells, white blood cells, like liver enzymes, everything looks great. So like that is the diagnosis of exclusion that is left. So we're going to change his diet to like a urinary support diet. But then the other thing that she gave us is a few days of anxiety medication for him. And 2 days into that anxiety medication, actually, honestly, 1 day into that anxiety medication, the issue's gone. So homeboy was just a little angsty boy. Takes after his mama, I guess. So hopefully we are now several days into the situation, and hopefully that is behind us. And he already seems to be feeling a lot better. Like he was like jumpy. So maybe he was stressed. Maybe it was just because his bladder was inflamed, and now we've like been feeding him this new food, and we shall see. Luckily, he doesn't really care about food switching. Emmy very much cares about food switching. We've been trying to switch her to a new food, and it's not going very well. So that was happening this week. And then the other thing is that we had some friends over, and it was just one of these moments I wanted to reflect on it because we had some friends over to our house. We had 2 other couples over. So there were 6 of us. And it just got me reflecting on adult friendship and making friends as an adult and how grateful I am, and also proud of myself, honestly, but how grateful I am that I have a lot of adult friendships that I've made like well into adulthood, but also how proud of myself I am that I'm like continuing to do that. And that isn't something that I was as good at like like 10 years ago. I moved to the city with a lot of friends from college and had a very, very tight-knit group of friends from college. I didn't really need to meet anybody in the city. I already knew all these people. So many people from my college come here. And then I started playing volleyball a couple of years into living here, made a lot of friends through that. And so although I do remember specifically when I was maybe like, I don't know, 27 or 28, something like that, when a lot of my college friends started to get more serious with partners, started to leave the city, started to talk about getting married, having kids. And like, I wasn't doing those things. I was actually breaking up with my boyfriend of almost 2 years. I did very, very specifically and deliberately cultivate my friendships with my volleyball friends in a bigger way than I had before, like seeing them outside of volleyball in a much more consistent way, because I could feel that my other friendship group, my previously core friendship group, was shifting. And I'm so glad that I did that, because if I hadn't have done that, I would have like one friend right now. But something that I've gotten much better at in addition to that in the last like 3 or 4 years is continuing to seek out and cultivate new friendships, even in like a one-on-one basis outside of that. So I was sitting at this barbecue looking around, like I met one of the people there. She was a makeup artist who had reached out to me. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw this happen in real time. A makeup artist reached out to me. I posted like a get ready with me, talking about how like I don't really know how to do my makeup more than like the one way. Like I didn't at the time have like an elevated version of my makeup. And she reached out to me and said that she would love to come do my makeup and teach me. And she did. And we hit it off while she was in my house. And so I texted her after and was like, hi, I'd like to be friends. And she said yes. And now we are friends and hang out all the time. So it was her and her partner. And then a couple that Skyline and I met because we joined a double dating app. I've talked about this app before, Double Social, and we met them and we loved them. And it was extremely cool to look around. Oh, and I forgot to mention at my birthday party, both couples were invited to my birthday party and they met at that party and hit it off. And like they've hung out separately also since then. And then the six of us hung out and we were just sitting there having dinner. And like I looked around and I was like, I've met, including Skyline, every single one of these people in the last 2 years. Like that is so cool that I have been able to cultivate those types of friendships in like later adulthood, not like later, but you know what I mean? Not my 20s, like in my 30s and almost my 40s. That is so cool. And it's something that I want to continue to cultivate. And it just like reminded me that I want to continue to do that. So those are my updates from the week. And now let's get to Sam. I know you're going to love her. And we are back with Sam. Hi, Sam. Welcome to Finding Mr. Height, the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk.
I am so excited. I don't know if you know this actually, because I did not include it in my Instagram DM to you, but every week I do a media mention on the pod.
Love it. Okay.
It's like in the beginning of the app, it's usually about like related to something I'm going to talk about. It's like a TikTok video I saw or a Substack that I read or an article that I saw, whatever. And you were my media mention like a month ago.
Amazing.
And that is why we were here today, because I came across your TikTok, specifically the video. I think it was about how your husband doesn't like green peppers.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That was like the first video of yours that I saw, and then did a whole deep dive and then talked about you on the pod and then was like, I got to reach out to her because I think this would be such an interesting topic. And here we are.
Yes. Love it. I'm so excited to talk about everything and just kind of dig in.
Yeah. So take the listeners back a little bit. They know who you are conceptually because, of course, I've talked about you before and we did a little intro, but take me back to the beginning. Like what was going on for you when you decided to kind of start making this series about decentering your husband?
Yeah. So my husband and I have been together for 11 years. We started dating in high school. We were babies. So it's been a
Wow.
very long time that we've been together, and we've lived together for 5 years. We actually only just got married last year. So we took our time. We really, settled into life together and figured out how we wanted to work together. Um, but it just got to a point where I was starting to feel like obsessive and resentful almost in a way, because my husband wasn't as obsessive about the things that I was obsessive about. And so instead of taking a look in the mirror about that and thinking maybe we're being too intense, I was instead allowing it to fester into resentment, and I was honestly just feeling exhausted all the time. So my mind was constantly spinning. I felt like my mental load was just so heavy. And I just was like, I don't think this is healthy. I don't think this is healthy for me. I don't think this is healthy for him. And I actually don't think that this is anything to do with him. I think this is a lot to do with me. I ended up seeing some content. I am not the first person to bring up decentering your husband. I will not be the last. But I learned the term. And when I heard people talk about it, I thought, oh, that's exactly what I do. I just have built my world around this person who hasn't asked me to build my world around them, by the way, who maybe
Yeah.
feels almost like a little bit freaked out by how much I've built my world around him, and just kind of made him the sun around which I orbit. And I've done this, and like hearing people use that terminology finally woke it up into my brain around what I was doing, and also kind of gave me the tools to step back and look and say, wait, maybe this isn't quite the right thing to be doing. Maybe this isn't what healthy marriages are built on, what healthy relationships are built on, and also gave me the tools to look internally as to why I might be doing that. So that was really helpful. And so on this journey, it's really a training of your mind. It's
Yeah.
reprogramming your brain. Once again, 11 years. So, we were babies. We started dating in high school. We did long distance throughout college. And I think perhaps that experience also led me to overcompensate when we actually
Mm.
were able to be together and we were able to have time, like when we moved in together for the first time. And I can talk about this a little bit more too, and like the excitement of playing house with your partner for the first time, and how that
Yep.
actually sometimes leads you to get into some really bad habits. But yeah, so I think I just got to a point where I was like, I'm so exhausted. And why am I so exhausted? And it truly had nothing to do with my husband. It had everything to do with me. So,
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the moving in and playing house thing because it just so happens the last two episodes of my podcast, I did a two-part series about moving in with a partner where I chatted about my experience and
Yeah.
I live with my partner. We've lived together for 9 months now,
Okay.
and he's the first person I've ever lived with, the first romantic
Right.
partner I've
Yes.
ever lived
Hmm.
with. So I very much resonate with that like playing
Right.
house analogy.
Right.
One of the things though that I found really compelling about what you were talking about, and to your point, there is other content about it as well, is I think there's a lot of conversations about decentering men in dating as a single
Yes.
woman and what that looks like. And that is so important. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I had not seen until recently, and then deep dived into a lot of content that does exist, the concept in a relationship to say, no, I want this person and I want to be in a healthy relationship and I love being in this relationship. And also, what are the things that I may be doing to make it more one-sided than it needs to be on my
Yeah.
own, like you said.
Right. Completely on my own due to like my own anxiety, my own like overcompensating, or my own picture of what it's supposed to be like.
Mm.
And just reprogramming your mind. And it was interesting because, when I brought up, I was, doing my little online research about decentering, feeling like it really fit what I was experiencing and feeling like it was something I wanted to pursue. And I mentioned this in some of my TikToks, but in January, I have 2 weeks off of work at the end of every year. And so
Oh,
with
wow.
those two
Awesome.
weeks, I know that's great. I love it. But those 2 weeks I spent, I was like, okay, let's make a plan for this coming year. You're doing your New Year's resolutions, what you're looking
Yeah. Yeah.
forward to, what you're going to like, what you want to do differently. And so with all of the research and all of just the content that I had been consuming, I was like, okay, let's make a plan. Let's figure out what this looks like for the coming year and let's stick to it for a year and see what happens. And
Mm.
so in January, I sat my husband down. Some women don't tell their husbands they're going to do this. And I think some women are scared of their husband's reactions and it's going to sound cold or it's going to sound mean. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
ever going to prioritize you again. And my husband's just like, not that kind of person. It wasn't that kind of conversation. But, I sat him down and I was like, I feel like I am obsessive over you. Like, I am
Mm.
constantly anticipating everything you could possibly need. I feel like I'm overbearing. I feel like I'm just anxious about you all the time. And I don't feel like
Mm.
that's healthy. And he was like, absolutely. I don't feel like that's healthy either. He's like, I want you to detach as well. Just to kind of less intensity. He's like, I don't want you to sacrifice for me. I don't want you to always be like monitoring me or anticipating my every need, because he doesn't feel like that's healthy either. And it was interesting because my husband and I don't really fight, especially like in the past few years. We really don't fight over anything. But in some of the discussions or any tense moments, it would usually always come from me feeling resentful that, I felt that
Mm.
he hadn't stepped up in a way or that he wasn't mirroring the level of like commitment or sacrifice that I was mirroring. And what I've kind of come to understand as I've gone through this process is like, it's not a game of who can sacrifice more.
Yeah.
I think that's like part of my understanding of relationships. It's like you have to fall on your sword, you have to sacrifice to make them work. And sometimes that's not
Relationships are
true.
work.
Right. I don't actually think that's true anymore. I think relationships should be easy. Like, I
Same.
actually think it should be the easiest thing in your life. But I had this really messed up idea of kind of what it looked like. And so when I sat him down and had this conversation with him, he was like, great, let's try it. Let's do it. So there are a few things that I was anticipating for my husband, and I talk about this a little bit on my TikTok, but my husband has ADHD. He like really struggles to feed himself. He doesn't eat. And I would get so upset about him not eating. Like I would watch, like, because we both work from home, by the way, which I don't think helps with the situation
Yeah.
because we can watch each other all day. But I would just watch him skip breakfast, and then noon would pass, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. would pass, and I'd feel anxious, and I'd be like,
This
why isn't
happens with
he
my
eating?
boyfriend. Also
Yeah,
ADHD.
okay, yep. And I would get so upset about it. Like, truly, I would feel so upset about it. And I don't really know why I was internalizing his experience to myself.
Mm.
Um, and I would, if I saw that he wasn't eating, I'd text, when are you going to eat? Do you need help with eating? Like, I can make food, I can help.
I'm curious if for me that is happening or was happening, still does, but now I don't care about it as much. But there was no negative impact on me. Like, it would be one thing if he was like not eating and then being like irritable
Right.
or whatever because he hadn't eaten. But like that
Uh-huh.
was that not happening for you either? Like there was
Not a
literally
single
no
negative
negative
impact.
impact.
No, it had nothing to do with me. Like my husband and I, honestly, I eat more than my husband. My husband and I have very different eating styles and, like we're just different people. But because
Mhm.
I felt like the right thing for him to do was to be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it really upset me when he wasn't doing what I thought he was supposed to do. I
Yeah.
just, once again, no negative impact to me whatsoever. And I would make food. And then, on days where maybe I was in meetings all day and he didn't notice, and didn't offer to help me with food, I'd be like, but I offer to help you with food all the time. Why? I think part of being an adult is asking for help when you need
Feeding
help.
yourself, I would
Right.
say.
Feeding yourself. And if you need help with that, that's what a partner is there for, to tap in when you need them to help. But so in January, I told him, I was like, I'm not going to be watching anymore. I'm not going to be like waiting to make sure that you're eating, listening for your footsteps to see if you're coming down to the kitchen. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. And it's not an angry thing. It's just this is exhausting for me thing. And I don't think you really care.
Right.
He was like, I don't care.
I don't.
It's not how he
What
prefers to be loved. Yeah.
what was that like for you? Two parts. One, what did that feel like for you in your head?
Mm,
Because I'm assuming that it wasn't just like, I'm not going to care about it anymore, and then you didn't. Like
no.
there's more work in deprogramming, like you were saying earlier.
Mm-mm.
So like I'm curious about that. And I'm also curious about the reactions that it brought up when you started talking about it publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think for me, admitting that I, as a like high achieving, independent, like super strong woman, am like panicking that my boyfriend hasn't eaten lunch. Panicking is like, I'm being dramatic, but like even
Yeah.
worried about it, like that's kind of embarrassing to me. That's what I'm
Absolutely.
telling
I
myself. I'm
agree
not saying it's
completely.
embarrassing, but like that's what I'm telling
It is
myself.
embarrassing. It is embarrassing. I completely agree with you because I would consider myself to be like a very high achieving, very independent person. Like, have always just been a person who takes care of myself. And something else that I feel a lot of internalized shame around this is I don't think I was raised to fawn over men so much. Like, I
No, me
can't, when I look
either.
back at my childhood, I'm not sure where this came from because my parents have always been very like, you are the best, men aren't shit. Like that's kind of the way I was raised, is just to not cater to other people and to be very self-sufficient and independent and like focused on myself, honestly.
Yeah.
um
And I think my mom was that way. I don't recall my mom orbiting my dad in that way at all.
right, I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it's dabbling in like, I just can't figure out where it came from. If it's society, if it's the media I'm consuming, is it like
Mhm.
church? Is it like, where is it coming from where I felt so driven to do this? So I feel shame around that because it doesn't align with the person that I feel like I am. Um,
Yeah.
and like kind of what I bring to the world. So I'm not sure where that came from. I still have worked very, very hard to try to figure out where that came from. I can't tell you. Um, but I think when you start talking about this online, the wor- there are two parties that are the angriest or the meanest to you, which are other women.
Mhm. Yeah.
Especially like the cool girl stereotype who's like, well, I would never do that, so like I would never have this problem. Because I'm like, I'm so happy for you, like genuinely.
Great.
I'm not looking I think that's great. Like something happened in your development that like led you to have the self-esteem to not have this problem. We're good. I'm happy for you.
Fantastic.
But if you don't understand how this feels, then you don't understand. You
Mhm.
truly can't. You can't see where we're coming from because you haven't had the experience that has somehow created this like monster inside of you. And I'm
Right.
happy for you. It doesn't mean that someone is necessarily weak, because I think we consistently see like very high performing women, very self-sufficient independent women still doing this. So it's
Mhm.
once again this question of, where does this come from? And then there's also men who are always aggressive up in my comments whenever I talk about this. about how it's cold, it's mean. Can you imagine how you would feel if your partner came up to you and said, I'm not going to care about you anymore? Yeah,
You're like,
like,
okay,
oh,
yep,
yeah,
that's
that's
exactly what
exactly
I
what I
said.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's exactly what I said. Yep. I'm not going to care about you anymore. Or, that means so you're never going to take care of him. Like, you're never going to do anything for him.
My
Right. It's
God,
like always this
vomit.
black and white extreme. There's no room for gray area. And similarly, sometimes with how the women in my comments see things too. But of course, it doesn't mean we're not going to care for each other. Of course, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do acts of service for each other or show up for each other. It looks different. It's less obsessive. It's less anticipatory. It's less genuinely monitoring a
Yeah.
human being, like almost like you would monitor a baby or like a child, um, that's making everybody in the house crazy. It's not just making you yourself crazy, but I would argue in a lot of these situations, like my husband does not want to be catered to.
Right.
My husband does not see marriage as my wife serves me and I get X, Y, and Z out of this. Like he sees this as friendship, partnership, and just like fun. Like we just have fun together. That's the whole point. And I think
Yeah.
that's the disconnect. My husband wants me to be like a full human being. And when I think I would consider this to be losing yourself a little bit. You lose
Mm.
yourself sometimes in your relationship, and it has nothing to do with your partner. And I think this can probably happen in heterosexual relationships, like any kind of relationships. I had some people who, are part of the LGBTQ community in my comments saying that they've done very similar things like this.
Oh,
I think this is
totally.
common, right? So I don't necessarily know if it's even gendered, but it's just losing yourself in a relationship at the expense of yourself. And if your partner wants you to be a whole human being, if they want you to not be anxious all the time, not be stressed out all the time, they're going to want you to go on this journey. Like this is going to be something that they support. And I can talk about this a little bit later, but the impact, let's see, it's July, end of July. I've been doing this for 6 months, give or
Yeah.
take. Completely different. Like the whole world has changed. My levels of anxiety have plummeted.
Oh, I love that
Um,
so much.
it is just, I mean, it's been a game changer. I've always been a very anxious person. And I do wonder sometimes if this kind of reaction to being in partnership comes from like, if it's more common for people who have anxiety.
Mm.
But just the level of I feel less resentment. I will say, like, our relationship has I mean, we've always had a great relationship, but I feel blissful. I think that's the word for it. It's just bliss. Like, we are intimate more. We are having more fun together. The time that we actually set aside to hang out is more like intentional and quality. And the resentment has just completely dropped. It's been a game
Yeah.
changer. So,
That's amazing. And I think you talked about like losing yourself in a relationship, which I think is exactly how it feels, but not in the way that I think we think about that phrase. Like previously when I thought about losing myself in a relationship, or if someone's doing that, it's like, oh, they're not doing their own hobbies anymore. They're not seeing their friends.
right.
They're isolating. For me, that is not the case at all. Like
Hmm.
I have probably more outside the home hobbies than my partner does. I'm seeing my friends all the time. I spend a lot of time apart from him doing my stuff,
Yeah.
but it's the when we're home part and the inside of the relationship part
Hmm.
where I feel that anxiety, or I've started to move away from
Yeah.
it as working on this, but like where I've felt
Right.
that. And so it doesn't like look the same as what I have always thought it would in terms of
Right.
losing yourself.
No, I think it's almost, if you've ever heard the term a fawning response,
Yeah.
um, it does feel that way. It's a fawning response when you're in somebody's presence and just wanting to. I think for me, I really confused devotion to somebody with service and making sure that they never
Mm,
experienced a single inconvenience ever. And that's just
yeah.
not true. And it does get micromanagey and it does get controlling. And I really do believe that that's not a great experience for the partner being fawned over either. I don't think that's pleasant, um,
Certainly not.
especially because it's at the expense of then built up resentment, built up like anger, or blaming them for things that aren't necessarily their fault. And it's definitely interesting because I think some people, you know, if we're going back to how people have reacted to this, I think some people really want to blame men. And
Mm.
I feel that sometimes I want to
Same.
blame men too. Yeah.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
love to blame men. But in this, you know, they're always like, you know, your husband's definitely doing something wrong. Like he's the one making you feel this way. And I'm like, oh, if you knew, no, like
No.
it's
Yeah.
not an expectation. This has never been an expectation. I honestly think he's been trying to get me to leave him alone for a long time and didn't have the words for it, you know, like to chill out and to just be like, you know what, like I haven't scheduled a doctor's appointment. Leave me alone.
And yeah.
Right. You know, so this is, well, it's funny because I feel like we should talk about this too, but you had mentioned like, how does it feel? How did it feel when we started in January to
Yeah.
resist this urge to do it?
Yeah.
And
I'm
how do
curious
you,
about like the day to day. Like what
yes,
did that feel like and some examples there?
it feels like, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Odyssey or if you know this like very famous scene from The Odyssey. I'm thinking about The Odyssey because I just saw it.
Yeah.
But there's this scene where Odysseus ties himself to the ship uh pole so
Yep.
that he can't like go to the sirens when they sing the siren song. And that's how it felt. Like I was like, I need to tie myself to a ship pole to fight the urge to do what I want to do so badly and the thing that's like ingrained in me to do. It almost felt
Hmm.
like trying to be free so that I could go run and do things. And so it was genuine. You know how sometimes when you have a habit, people say to put a rubber band on
Oh
your
yeah.
wrist? Uh-huh. That was almost kind of what I had to do is every single time I felt that, which I would say was probably between 3 to 5 times a day in January, I was just like, no, you have cold turkey. We have to stop. We cannot do this. Um, I have no tips or tricks other than you just have to stop. Every time you feel the urge, stop.
Do you have a
Yeah.
couple examples? So you gave the one about like orbiting around his meal times
Yeah.
or the
Hmm.
lack thereof, which is very relatable to me. Do
I
you have a
know.
few other examples of things that you were
Yeah.
like finding yourself with the urge to do?
Yeah. Okay. I talk about this one sometimes, but it's still this is still one where I'm like tying myself to the ship mast. Like I can't, I have to. So going to the gym in the evening. So this is another interesting thing. I work till 5 and my husband works till 6. And
Okay.
so I very much feel an urge to be ready and available to him starting at 6 p.m. on, whether that's going to the gym or cooking dinner together. And I would never go to the gym at 5 or go do exercise because I would just kind of be waiting around for him. Um, or I would go and then always be back right home at 6 in case he wanted to do something, or which is
Yeah.
crazy in retrospect. Who cares? He didn't care. The issue would be, you know, sometimes he's finishing up a project, he's working till 6:15, 6:30, and I'm sitting there waiting. And I'm like, but I
But
came home for you.
right. But he
What do you
doesn't
mean?
know that, nor
He
did he
doesn't
want you
know.
to.
Right. He doesn't know. He doesn't care. He doesn't want me to. Like, you know, we will hang when he is done. Like, but I would be so resentful. I'd be like, why didn't you consider me when you factored in needing to finish this project for an extra half hour when I hadn't communicated that I was expecting anything?
Yep.
Um, instead of just like living my life, like this idea of I could go to the gym and get home at 6:15, 6:30 and nothing would change. And he would be like, okay,
Yeah.
I I can just go to the gym. Like I don't. I mean, I really do believe in communicating. So sending a text, hey, heads up, I'm going to the gym. I'm planning on getting home 6:30. Great. But instead, I would just make up these things in my head and then just kind of expect him to know that I was downstairs waiting for him like this. Why? Crazy. It's crazy. I even like so we're at the beach right now with our family
Oh, fun.
and I know it's great. We love it. Yesterday we, you know, because my husband works till 6, but you know, because we're
Mhm.
on a trip, we're still working this whole week. And so we had talked. I was like, let's try to like f off like a little early this week so that we can go to the beach or like have pool time in the evening. Great. And so 5 p.m. comes and he hasn't shut off his computer. 5:15, 5:30 goes by, and I'm sitting and like kind of stewing, and I'm like we were supposed to go to the beach. We were supposed to go to the pool and you're still working. And then I was like going to get mad about it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I'm a human being with autonomy. I can just go down there. I can
I
go to
could
the
go
beach.
to the
I can go to the
beach.
pool. Right. I don't actually have to wait for him to do anything. I could go to the beach. I could go to the pool. And when he's ready, he can just come and meet me. It's crazy though. My mind doesn't think like that. I don't think to just do things anymore, which is part of this training. 6 months in, and I still caught myself yesterday. And I was scared. I
Yeah.
was like, why? Why are we like this?
Yeah,
Right?
in the moving in series that I did, or the two-parter episode that I did, I talked about an aspect of this, which is that I typically wake up earlier than my partner does.
Hmm.
And on days when we don't have anything to do, like a Saturday, Sunday, whatever, naturally he sleeps in longer than I do. And I used to feel the need to stay in bed until he woke up
Hmm.
so that we could have our like morning in bed, maybe
Right.
intimacy, like whatever it is, right? Like, and I do
Yep.
enjoy when we do happen to wake up around the same time and we
Yeah.
get to have in bed time together. But I I was waiting for an insane amounts of time without starting my day. And he actually ended up saying to me, "It's like, I feel guilty when I wake
Yeah.
up and I look over and you're like on your phone."
Right.
Like you could, and sometimes I just enjoy lounging in bed and I'll be reading and like whatever. That
Yeah.
is what I want to do with my morning. But sometimes I am legitimately, or I was legitimately just waiting for him to wake up. Why?
Yep.
What the fuck? What am I doing?
Right. Yeah.
And
Hours
so,
of your time.
yes. And so, like a few months ago, I forget when this was, I was like, I'm just going to get up. And this is not revolutionary. And yet somehow it feels that way.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get up. And I do have to actively decide to do it still.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now I have this like lovely 1 to 2 hour stretch by myself where I like actually get to feel like I'm alone in my home,
Yeah.
which I generally love that he's here. Like the best part of living together is that he's here all the time. Like I
But sometimes
genuinely
it's
love it.
fun to be
Sometimes it's
alone.
fun to be alone and like
Hmm.
put on a show that he doesn't like that I could
Yeah.
totally watch if he were here and he wouldn't care, but like it's just easier if he's not.
Right.
And I genuinely now really love that morning time. And it feels crazy to me that I didn't figure that out sooner.
I know exactly what you mean. Like, it's just, but it doesn't occur to you that you have a different choice
Yeah.
until you actually put the thought and the work into it. And then you look back and you're baffled
Yeah.
by
I'm like,
how you
what am I
didn't
doing?
realize. Like, why? Why would that matter? You
Yeah.
can always get back in bed 2 hours later, but your mind just doesn't let you go that route. It's so interesting. For the longest time, I would feel so my husband and we do shared bank accounts, and then like we each keep our second paycheck, and that goes to like our individual retirement funds and fundsy money and personal savings. So
Yeah.
one paycheck goes to joint, one paycheck goes to us. That works really well for us financially. And so I I have a lot of body pain. Like I have like a creaky body. And so
Mm.
I recently this I think I started this in February. Sometimes I would go get massages as one-offs, and I would feel so guilty because I was getting a massage and my husband wasn't. And I don't know,
Oh.
I with my own money that I right this is really scary that I used to feel this way, but I'd be like, but I feel guilty going to use my own money to get a massage when Chandler isn't getting a massage. Why?
Why?
Why? And so part of my thing that I challenged myself to do in January, I was like, you should do monthly massages, and it's your own money. You should spend it exactly how you want it to, and you should not feel guilty about it. And I've started doing it, and I like have to fight still to this day this urge to not feel when I come back from a massage and he's like mowed the lawn or something, and I'm like, oh God. And I'm like, no, no, stop it. Snap out of it, because he's an adult. If
Yep.
he has his own money. If he wants to go get a massage, he can go get a massage. He's frugal. He doesn't think that that's like a good use of money, so he's not going to spend his money. That's fine.
And that's
You know,
fine.
but what is it about me that feels guilty if I'm having like a good experience or a pleasurable experience and he doesn't get to also have that? Almost like it has to be fair or equal. Very confusing. Cannot unpack that in my mind, but
It's hard.
it's
And
hard.
I'm curious if you've had this experience too of like now I evaluate things in a little bit of a different way of like why I'm doing something. So an opposite example. So I get up much earlier than he does on days when, we're not doing anything. And however, I almost always wait to have breakfast until he's awake. And I recently was thinking about this, and he actually asked me about it. He's like, you don't have to wait. But then I was like, well, he cooks breakfast. So so if I wait, I don't have to make food.
Amen. I know.
So then I was like, oh, okay, this is not actually about the same thing. This is not the same thing at all. This is actually me just like wanting to eat the breakfast that he's going to make me and not being full when that happens.
Exactly. I consider it, sometimes I look at myself and I do see the weaponized incompetence a little bit. I'm like, oh, because my husband's the breakfast maker too. And sometimes I will hold out where I'll be like, would it be so sad if you made the breakfast? It definitely does make you reevaluate. It's just, you look through at everything through a different lens. When we talk about losing ourselves in our relationships, I think because my husband and I started dating so young, and then we were long distance for a while, we had a
Yeah.
hard time decoupling this idea of we have to do everything together because we have to make up for lost time. And I can still see that impact. It's been, I don't know what year is it? 2026. We've lived together for 6 years. Like, we have been not long distance for 6 years at this point. Maybe even more, 7, sure. It's over. Like, we're not going to ever be separate again. We don't have to make up for lost time anymore. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And it's just this idea of like everything has to be done together.
I
So that's
know.
also what I think, like, decentering your husband, like you talked about in marriage and in relationships and not just like as a single person, but I think it's realizing the toxic ways that maybe your attachment is just not healthy.
Mhm.
um there's this new Olivia Rodrigo song that I loved, like, and she talks about like we're so in love but we're too attached.
Oh,
um
interesting. I love
and I
Olivia
think
Rodrigo. I haven't heard that one though.
I love Olivia Rodrigo. And I heard that song and I went, oh my gosh, she understands. She has
She
had the
gets it.
situation. She gets it where like, and and sometimes that attachment is one-sided or it's unbalanced. And that's the thing I
Mhm.
think with decentering too. And I just don't think that men, well, it's interesting. My husband was raised by like very feminist, happy people. Like, once again, where does this come from? But I just don't think that men are socialized to prioritize the needs of their female partners as much as women are socialized to prioritize the needs of their male partners. Um, they're not taught to be so, trying to think of what the word I'm trying to go for here is.
I haven't heard like the whole like people pleasing thing.
Yes.
That is so female centered in terms of like the ways that I've heard
Yeah.
so many women talk about struggling with people pleasing and like men almost not at all. Not that they
Right.
can't, but
Of
it's
course.
just
Yeah.
not a conversation that's out there in the ether.
Mm-mm.
I think little girls are socialized to be peacemakers. They're
Yes.
socialized to be like, oh, you know, he was pulling your hair, he likes you. Like
Right.
those types of things where it's like, no, 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 like you don't need to get upset about this thing. You can just, oh, no, 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 it's only because of this. It's okay. Everything's fine. And I don't think little boys, generally speaking, are socialized in the same way.
No, I agree. I agree. And they're not socialized to just be as considerate.
Yeah.
I think part of being raised a little girl, being rewarded for being responsible and being rewarded for
Mhm.
being kind and considerate, even the superlatives that they would give out in elementary school. Like, I remember I got the responsibility one and I was like, wow. Or I would get the consideration one. But we are raised to anticipate the needs of everyone around us, all the time, in a way that I don't think is healthy. Once again,
No,
separating the two ideas that it is okay to care about people and it is okay to anticipate needs and to do things for other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the world is better when everyone functions that way. But there is a
totally.
difference between consideration and obsession. Um, Especially at the expense of your own experience, like the green peppers in the salad. Like, sometimes I deserve to have green peppers too. And
You deserve green
like,
peppers.
right, you deserve green peppers. And especially because my husband, he never asked for the green peppers to be out. He has never vocalized anything in that way. It's just my own making up these barriers and like rules I have to follow that he has
Yeah.
never vocalized either. It's
That's
spooky.
that's me and eggplant. I
Okay.
love eggplant. I love it.
That's great.
Like it's so good. Anytime I see it on a menu, I want it. I love it. I love it. I love it. My partner doesn't love it. He would never order it. It's not his favorite thing. somehow along the way, I internalized that to be like, we can never have eggplant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we were on a double date with a couple friend of ours, and we were all going to share, right? We were talking about what we want. And there was this like bomb looking eggplant dish on the menu. And one of them suggested it. And I was like, oh no, he doesn't like eggplant. And he looked at me and he was like, I will eat the eggplant. Like you like eggplant. They want the eggplant. Get the eggplant. And it was like one of those situations where it's like, he never asked for that accommodation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are other things like he doesn't like olives. And I'm well
Neither does my
aware.
husband.
I know as somebody who used to not like olives, that if olives have entered into a situation, you kind of can't remove the olive flavor.
People are very passionate about olives. Yeah. And I'll give them that. Yep.
That I understand more because
Right.
like the flip, but like, is it gonna kill him if there is a shared dish of eggplant on the table? Obviously not.
No. Right.
Obviously not.
Right. And mature people who, we partnered with mature people.
Yes.
Know to just say, okay, like a mature person is just going to be okay with that. That's another thing too. I'm like, were we accidentally partnered with people who really badly reacted to things and now we overplease? I don't think so. So once again, where does it come from? I don't know.
I do have a couple experiences like that.
Yeah,
but I think I was that way before though.
I agree. I'm a fawner. I fawn over my romantic partners, even from a young age. But once again, where does that come from? Where does it come from? I don't understand. And something I've been thinking about as well, and I don't know if you experience this, but like obviously we have our internal things, like the internal when you're just in your home together. But I often explore this idea of like the sacrifice that we present to other people to look like good partners or good wives. So something I've been I've been exploring this is my anxiety over how the house looks when we have company coming over. And how I used to feel so frantic and that our house had like if they see dust on the baseboards, this is over. Like they're going to judge me. Why would they judge me? Why would it be me who's being judged? Why wouldn't it be the both of us or my husband who's being judged? And why would it only fall to me?
You.
Right. Exactly. And this is part of my last 6 months as well, is when my husband has people over. If he wants to clean, great. If not, I've just decided that if there's dust on the baseboards, people are just going to have dust on the baseboards. And that's been very liberating for me is to like you said, society is going to blame me, but I don't have to blame me.
No.
They can think what they want, but I think sometimes the fawning also comes from wanting to be publicly perceived as the best wife, the best girlfriend, like the one who like can hold it all together. And I think I'm so tired of holding it all together. And no one asked me to.
I don't have the exact experience with like organization in the home because I am real messy.
Okay, amazing. Love that. Mm-hmm.
But, and actually my partner is too. So like we kind of like deal with
That's
our
a perfect
mess
couple.
Collectively together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a problem because sometimes neither of us see the mess and then all of a sudden we're like, oh no.
We've let things get out of control.
Yeah, we've let it slip. This is bad. The thing that I think about though with that is the fact that I do have this podcast, this platform, et cetera, where I talk about dating, where I talk about relationships. And I've talked about my own struggles in dating, in relationships, in anxiety, anxious attachment, all of these things. But I still struggle to be like, no, I also continue to struggle with this thing that I give advice about.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I don't understand where it comes from, besides the fact that people say it to me in comments and DMs. But like, why are you talking about this if you aren't good at it? But internally, I don't think that about other places where I seek advice. Like, I don't think that you're a great example. I did not see your videos and think like, oh, well, this woman is struggling with this thing. So like, why would I listen to what she has to say about it? If anything, I was like, oh my goodness, somebody who seems like a competent person is also struggling with this thing.
Right.
That means I could also still be a competent person. Yeah.
Right. I know, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think we are not honest about our experiences online. And I think it is because of the comment sections and the DMs, where the minute I hate when I see this happen to people when they bring up just maybe something that's challenging in their relationship
Yeah.
that makes it not a perfect relationship. And there are no perfect relationships. Immediately, divorce babes, like,
Leave him.
how
Yeah.
it hurts. It hurts. We only see what people choose to show us on the internet. And I have had so many moments where instead of entering someone's comment section and being like, leave him, I'm like, oh, how refreshing to see a person who is navigating the complexities of human relationship and partnership and figuring it out as we all are, because people who have been together for 60 years are also building this plane as we fly it. Um, and instead of the super unhelpful comments, but sometimes like I'm scared to put, like, I remember one time I put a video out online that said that my husband and I usually like ask each other before we do something, um like, hey, is it okay if I go to get a drink with my friend on Friday?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
like courtesy, right? And
Yeah.
people were like, that's so controlling that you have to ask your husband to go. I'm
Oh,
like, okay, I feel like you're
I
purposefully
hate
missing the point,
I
right?
hate when people hear what you didn't say.
Right. Or you infer, and I'm like, if you don't know me, if you've never seen my videos, which happens a lot, and people come to one video and they comment and they're like, wow, this is really messed up that you would, and I'm like, I actually don't think it's like,
No.
it's not even an asking. It's like hey, Olivia and I are thinking about getting a drink this weekend. That cool with
Yeah.
you?
It's an
It's always going to be a
FYI
yes. Right.
framed as like in
Right.
case
Because
there's
it's
something I'm not
considerate.
aware of.
Right.
Yes.
Like, unless you've planned us a beautiful getaway to, I don't know. I don't know what you've done. So, or like, is there a family thing I haven't known about, which like not happy if it's not on the calendar, but like we'll move on. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
it was so interesting. And I think it makes it hard to have good conversations online. Like I watch a lot of, like, there are women out on TikTok right now who just are getting freaking eaten up by the manosphere because their videos are getting shared. They're going like
Mm,
really far down the pipeline, and they're really brave because I'm a little scared that sometimes my videos are going to end up on the wrong side of TikTok and it's going to get really nasty. And so it makes you a little hesitant to share. But even just like the videos I've shared about decentering my husband and the examples, I think people need the examples so they can
yes.
see it in themselves when they are doing these things. Like, like, do you have to watch that show you hate with your husband? No. Like,
No.
do you have to follow him around the house to make sure he's eating 3 square meals a day? No. Like,
No.
you
Yeah,
don't.
you mentioned the Odyssey. My boyfriend loves that kind of thing.
Of course.
I
Hmm.
don't. I actually don't even like movies, if I'm being
Yeah.
totally honest.
Great.
I don't like them. I don't think it's worth my money to go see a movie in a movie theater. I'm so sorry. But and now I will at some point now I will go see a movie in a movie theater and I will get
Yeah.
somebody being like, I thought you didn't like movies. Anyway. So I digress.
God forbid we ever do anything out of character
Yeah.
once.
Recently, my boyfriend was like, he was like, oh, I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to go see the Odyssey in IMAX. I guess there's like one theater in New York City that has the specific, I don't know.
I know exactly what he's talking about, and he does have to see it in IMAX. It's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So he was like, oh, I wonder, he's like, I'm trying to figure out when a good time would be. And I was like, how about when I'm gone next week?
Yeah.
Perfect time.
Right? Like, I know. That's me. And, it's prioritizing time. It's figuring out, like, you don't have to do everything together. You don't have
Nope.
to like everything. Something that makes me so sad, and this is kind of a different topic, but I have caught myself, like, I hate when women get into relationships with men and I see them adopt all of the men's hobbies and then they lose their
Mm,
own hobbies. And, like,
yeah.
once again, losing yourself in a relationship. I think there's such a difference between learning something about an activity or a hobby that your partner enjoys so that you can like do it with them, but then also like surrendering anything that you like in exchange for that. My husband really loves tennis, and so I've gotten into tennis. And but it just like gets to a point sometimes where I'm like, hey, we got to turn the tennis off. We're done. Like,
Yeah.
like there's just a balance between, once again, it goes back to constantly wanting somebody to always have the best, most comfortable, most like fun experience for themselves at the sacrifice of yourself. And people in comment sections really only take that as you hate your husband.
Right. Yeah. Fuck
Like
that guy. You're
too
like,
much.
no.
Right.
My
Or like,
thing with that is
yeah.
music festivals. My boyfriend loves music festivals. He loves EDM. He goes to a lot of them. And when we very first met, right after we met, he went to Bonnaroo. It's just like a multi-day
Oh
music
yeah.
festival. Yeah, he's obsessed with it. So last year, I was like, let me try. I'll go with you. Like, maybe I've never
Brave.
done this before, right? So like, maybe this will be something that I like and that we can do together. It did get rained out after we were already there and was not a great experience. And this year he went by himself and it was
Amazing.
great.
Yep.
I'm like, you know what? I tried
Right.
it though. I'm down
That's
to
the thing.
try.
Yeah.
I'm down to see if this is something that, and maybe in the future, I'll go to a different one with him that doesn't have as much of a rain out risk. But also it's great if that's his thing. Like I have volleyball.
Right.
Volleyball is my thing. I actually don't want him to play volleyball. That's my thing. It's fine.
Yeah. No, sometimes I'm like, this is my thing.
So let's say we have a listener out there, they're listening. Maybe they've had a small moment of recognition in listening to this episode. What do you think is one thing that somebody could do this week to take the first step if they're realizing maybe this is something they want to explore?
Oh, I love this question. I say leave the house and do something on your own. I think you have to, it's just like any habit, you have to build it. So,
Yeah.
take one. So for me, like my husband and I cook together every single night unless we have communicated otherwise. That's kind of just that's what we do. But like let him cook dinner one night. Like if you guys do things in partnership, let him do it all by himself one night. Like let him do it. Like, or don't plan a meal that night and let him, like, I don't know. Once again, my husband is a completely competent person. He makes food all the time. I don't
Yeah.
know why I feel that I still have to plan food for him when I go out. Once again, he's never asked me to. I don't know why I do that. Like, and do it like spontaneously. Don't set anybody up for it. Don't give too much.
Yeah.
Just say, like,
Next
hey,
Thursday, I will be
yeah,
leaving.
nope. Like just 1 week to prepare. Just be like, hey, I feel like I want to go see a movie by myself tonight. Bye. Try to do it. See what happens. And here's the thing. Depending on your like this is also a good way to test not that you need to test your relationship, but this is a good way to know like if you and your partner are on the same page, because I think a good response to that will be like, great.
Amazing.
That sounds super fun. I'm glad you're doing that. Or like go like play tennis with a friend, go for a walk with a friend during meal, like go do any like mess up your schedule on purpose, mess up your routine on purpose and do something selfish. Like it's not actually selfish. This is the fun part.
No.
It's not actually selfish. It's not selfish. It's disruptive to routine that you have created, and that does not make it selfish. And just see how it feels, and you're going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I still to this day feel so uncomfortable all the time. Like if I'm going out with my friends for a drink on a Thursday and my husband's like, that sounds so fun. And I'm like, I feel awful. Like, I don't know why. Do it. Like you have to make yourself uncomfortable. I think, and that's another thing too. Like I talk a lot about discomfort on my page too, and how it's so important for us to feel uncomfortable, especially in a world where we are like constantly inundated with conveniences and we have gotten unused to feeling uncomfortable. And so feeling uncomfortable feels even
Yes.
more uncomfortable now than it ever has. But like make yourself uncomfortable. Just bring it up, do something for yourself, disrupt the schedule, disrupt the routine, and see what happens. And I guarantee you in like almost all cases, it's going to be fine. No one's going to
A-
care.
absolutely.
It's like a made up thing that you've made up in your head that like the world, like his night can't function without you and the routine can't move on without you. It can.
If that turns out to be true, that's probably something to look at.
Exactly. Yep. If you going and doing something for yourself, like for example, I'm getting a massage 2 Mondays from now at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm not doing, I'm tapped out. I put it on the calendar. That's how we communicate what we're doing. I'm not going to say anything else about it. I'm not going to be like, well, you have to no. And if somebody
No.
were to react to you disrupting the schedule, I think it's probably different when you have children. So caveat, children probably change
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
even
Fair.
still, like you probably need to give more of a heads up, but even still, if you give a heads up and you are happy to make a plan and you decide to do something for yourself and your partner freaks out on you, no,
Yeah,
no,
that's
no, no,
not it.
no. Nope, that's not it because like you have to be two individual people and you can be tethered. Like there's a tether, but you can't be like, I don't know, attached. And I think that's what I really had to learn here is just what healthy looks like and how both partners showing up in the relationship with healthy expectations of attachment and healthy expectations of what commitment and sacrifice and partnership look like me like that defines the health of the relationship. You both have to be committed to being healthy. And I've said this before in my TikToks, but like it's been interesting watching how, as I've backed off, my husband has moved in.
Oh,
It's almost
interesting.
like I'm not taking up all the air in the room anymore. There's space for us to be people. Like, I feel like he's more into me now. Not that he's never not been into me, but he's like really into me now. Like, is it because I'm not nagging you all the time? Is it because I'm not so anxious all the time? Like, are we having more fun together? But
Maybe
he,
all of the above.
right, he's been taking more initiative. He does like he's always been very involved in our household chores and but it's ramped up.
Love that.
um do with that what you will, but and I know I'm not the only one who's experienced this when they have drawn back. And I don't know, maybe there's some sort of like magic spell about that where men just like love when women are a little aloof. I don't know. But truly it's been very interesting. And maybe it's truly just because the relationship is healthier. Um
Yeah, I think the example you gave of not taking up all of the air in the room
yeah,
is probably the best analogy that I can think of for it. It's
right,
like you're giving him space to lean in. He
right,
literally cannot. If you are leaned all the way over, he
right,
physically, literally cannot lean any direction towards you.
exactly. Yeah. And I also think like for in partnership, it is attractive to normal people when people care for themselves, when they have their own interests, their own activities, when they are prioritizing themselves and they are
Yeah.
interesting people, because I don't know if you can be interesting if you're only focused on your partner. Like I just don't think that that makes you very interesting.
Well, especially not
Yeah.
to them because there's nothing they don't know about you.
Right.
Like, what are
There's
you going to talk
no,
about? If I've spent all day orbiting you, we're just
yeah.
talk about you?
Right. So, you know, it might be the secret sauce. That's all I'm saying is honestly being I don't like the word selfish because I don't actually believe that this is selfish, but let's say being a little selfish and putting yourself first, I think will completely
Well,
change the
maybe a
relationship.
reframe of the negative connotation the word selfish has.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Why not be a little selfish? Be a little
I think it's
selfish.
important. I think it's
Yeah, it
important.
doesn't mean your partner's not getting things. It doesn't mean you're not caring for each other. It means nothing except for people are taking care of themselves just as much as they're taking care of other people. And that was definitely not what was happening before.
Amen. Well, Sam, this has been amazing. Like I
Yeah,
said, I could chat with you forever.
I know. Same.
But alas,
I
if
know.
the
It
listeners
is
want to hear
time.
more from you, which I know they do, where can they find you and your content?
Yeah. Find me on TikTok, Sam at the Sam underscore show. On Instagram, I'm Sammy Showalter. Come follow me. I post a lot. It's not always about this. Sorry, but it will be sometime. And I believe no niche is the best niche. So
I love that. Well,
love
thank
it.
you again. This was
Yeah.
lovely. And to the listeners, we will talk next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for listening.
Bye.